Hey folks, Michael Mann with Michael Mann Security Services. This is protesters preventing the disruption of worship services. Hey, if you want to get a hold of us, you get us at contact at michaelmannsecurityservice.com, or you can call me at 615-956-3912. Let's get started. All right, folks, the agenda is the purpose. The purpose of this is to talk about the 6 steps in preventing these type of events from occurring. This is not about responding to some protest that's already occurring. If you're talking about use of force and how you're going to engage with these folks when they get in the sanctuary, man, it's too late. This is about preventing that. Okay, so let's get into it. So prevention in this case, again, is this act of stopping the protest from occurring. Now, remember, there's always planning and preparation in prevention. Prevention is not about response. It's about planning and preparing for the event that is going to occur. And you identify that in your emergency action plan as you guys are creating and developing your emergency action plans. And we'll talk about that in a second. The purpose of this also, or really the goal in this, is to reduce liability. I don't want to get into this with anybody. We want to see this early. We want to prevent it and stop it before they walk in the sanctuary and start to cause trouble. And at some point, possibly force, or somebody feels like a volunteer feels like they are forced to engage with these folks physically. And we don't want to do that. You don't want to do that at all. There's too much liability involved. And we need to look at this from a biblical standpoint also. That's the most important part. So we want to prevent it and we want to reduce liability here. Okay. So the first step in this is the security assessment. You hear me talk about this all the time, but this is why this is important. I'm a 25 plus year security professional, globally known, and developing physical protection programs, not just for churches and ministries, for big corporations. That's still a part of the business model that I have. And so the security assessment, if you haven't had one, you need to have one done. That validates what your current security posture is to tell you what you need to deal with this. The majority of churches out there, and I do this all over the country, I have customers all over the country, and I will tell you that most churches are not prepared for this. They do not have the resources to actually deal with this. So also that assessment is going to evaluate all your threats and your vulnerabilities. And again, of course, that's subjective because this is based on the experience, training, and education of your assessor. But if you've got a professional that's doing this, they will evaluate those threats and vulnerabilities. And of course, the other part of the assessment provides recommendations for improvement. So it's going to tell you what you need to do to improve your security posture. And really now, unfortunately, because these events continue to occur, and we really kind of saw a rise in this during COVID, protests probably should be now added to the threat spectrum in the assessment for your church, right? The second step is the emergency action plan. I talked about this. This is kind of a continuation of your security assessment. In your assessment, it is going to identify that you probably need this emergency action plan. If I were to assess your church and you don't have an EAP, that's going to be one of the first recommendations. The EAP emergency action plan provides a written standard for preventing, mitigating, and responding to threats and hazards. And very specifically in this case, we're talking about a protest or someone that that shows up, and whether they're doing this outside or they come inside your sanctuary, how does you guys respond to this and how you deal with it? Okay. There are common mistakes in what I see with EAPs today is emergency action plans. A lot of churches just talk about what is their response to a medical emergency or like an active shooter event. Well, medical emergencies are, that's probably one of your primary concerns, the most likely thing to occur. But the active assailant thing is probably the least likely. And so not only do you need to worry about those two elements, but there's other things that you need to worry about and plan to be able to respond to. And so a common mistake is we just limit ourselves to one or two response protocols. That is not an emergency action plan. Okay. Understanding the threat. The groups that are doing this today are organized and they are funded, which you've probably already seen. If you look to the right of the screen there, these are the 3 steps that are used by the No Kings protesters. They have a website and they are very open about their planning and preparation. It tells people on their website the steps they need to take to plan and prepare. And you'll see it says prepare ahead of time, how to de-escalate and remain safe with law enforcement, what rights they have, how to prepare for rapid response rallies, how to organize. So they are going to do things prior to this protest that you can probably see, and we're going to address that in the layered approach. So there's always planning and premeditation. Anytime that they're going to do these things, they are organized, they are funded, they're being taught how to do this. And so you need to understand the threat. So you need to, so that way you can understand what your response is going to look like to keep you, your volunteers, and the church out of trouble. Okay. Use of force categories: deadly, non-deadly, or lethal, non-lethal. And if they come in like what we saw in Minnesota, that's trespassing and disorderly conduct, basically, in most states. And so the use of deadly force is not even authorized in that type of situation. I don't know that I would use non-deadly force or non-lethal in that situation, going to try to put my hands on somebody or escort somebody out. It's really about de-escalation. We're going to talk about that in a second and how to deal with it. So what are your policies and procedures in place for use of force? Do your volunteers understand when they can use force or what the categories are? When I go to facilities and I train people, what I do see churches is, even though they have carry permits, they've had training before, the big things that they don't understand is they don't understand the categories of force. They don't understand the definitions of them. They don't understand when they can use those categories, and they don't know what the consequences are, understand the consequences that they have to use those as a private citizen. So those are very important things to understand. What are your policies and procedures? And then the law enforcement response. A lot of this is going to depend on you. What do you want to do when the police get there? It's your property or the church's property. What they're going to ask, what do you want them to do? And so you need to understand what this looks like. And then, of course, that layered approach, use of multiple layers, the things we talked about, they're going to plan and prepare, which probably includes looking at your site prior to. So those multiple layers allow you to see things through early detection, observation, positive engagement, and of course, training. So what do you see early? What do you see the week before this takes place? Are they going to show up and they're going to take pictures? Will they walk around the site? They possibly would do that. I would, if I was trying to get a response out of your church and I was going to show up and protest. So what does that look like if we observe and then we have positive engagement with these folks? It is a possibility it will deter them from your church and make them go somewhere else psychologically. Okay. And then, of course, dismissal is always a good tactic here. When somebody shows up and they won't leave, you guys can just leave. Man, you guys, the church transfers risk to liability insurance. And so they're trying to get a response from the church. That's what protests are all about today. It's, what we're seeing is they're trying to get a response. And everybody knows this, from conservative elements, from churches, from the government. And we have to be careful about it. So this is where we go back and we use our emergency action plan to understand what our response is. And dismissal, this should be part of it. Hey, to de-escalate this, man, eliminate the point of contention. You can just always leave, have the congregates leave, and then they just leave. If there's somebody there not to argue with, they're just going to go somewhere else. Right. And then if they start tearing the place up, you call the police. Okay. That's against the law. All right, folks. If you want to get a hold of us again, you give me a contact at michaelmannsecurityservices.com. You can call me at 615-956-3912. Remember, folks, it is about prevention, not response. And if you need help with assessments, emergency action plans, or training in de-escalation, use of non-deadly force, and how to prepare for protests, you can always get a hold of me, give me a call, shoot me an email, and we will assist you with